Michael Savage Show contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Here is Michael Savage.
Savage Nation, Rock and Roll Friday. Any topic is fair game. From impressionist art. I've heard of the phrase shock jock. I've come up with a new phrase. Maybe you can help me perfect it. The British snots who put me on a list with murderers and terrorists, I'm calling them shock pals. That doesn't work, though, because shock jock works together, obvious, the iambic pentameter and all that. And there's simple rhyming. But what would rhyme with, well, we want to use the word shock in reference to a politician that does something shocking. Whatever. It's open mic to mic. Any topic is fair game. I can talk about a boxing match I witnessed last night on Showtime, and I will. I was watching an amazing fight last night between a guy named Arthur Abraham. It was out of Munich, Germany, and Arthur Abraham is a middleweight champion of one of the leagues. And he looks like Putin. It's amazing how closely he resembles Putin. He fights in a very interesting style. And he was fighting a Turkish man named Mahir Oral. Mahir Oral is movie star handsome, tall, lean. And they were actually engaged in a pretty brutal fight, but very civilized. Now listen to what I'm getting at. This was a very civilized fight. I know there are leftists out there who say that boxing is brutish and should be banned, but they forget that boxing has rules. They forget that the referee actually stops the fighting when someone makes a low blow or a boxer gets too hurt. It's a fight, but it's a fight with civilized limits. And that's one of the fundamental elements of Western civilization. That's why it's called Western civilization. We're human beings. We fight, we argue, but we have rules for doing it. In fact, the rules for boxing were developed in England in the 1860s and were called the Marquis of Queensberry Rules, after the nobleman who endorsed them. You see, in that era, the British had civilized limits on their sports, on their media, and their society, and certainly on their governmental officials. But today there are no limits on the media, which is free to broadcast the most far-left rubbish imaginable, such as Obama calling anybody who disagrees with his attempt to hijack the healthcare system enemies of the state, liars, and things of that nature. No limits on society, as you can see from the drunken sluts that stumble around Sunset Boulevard. And no limits on government anymore in what they will do to destroy their opposition. And that's why I like to watch boxing. But that fight between Arthur Abraham and Mahir Oral was interesting to me for a couple of reasons. And I'll tell you one of them. Arthur Abraham is very powerful. Oral is very good-looking, as I said, tremendous physique, but didn't have the same power in his punches as Abraham. And so towards the 10th round of I think it was a 12 or 15-round title fight, Abraham knocked Oral down twice or three times, and the referee was very, very touching. I saw him say to the man who had been knocked down, "I can't let you take much more punishment. If you go down one more time, I'm going to have to stop it. Are you okay?" And, of course, Oral's a fighter, as a warrior. He said yes. He goes back, and Abraham gets another shot across the head, knocks him down on his knees. Oral comes back up from the 8 count and wants to continue fighting, and Abraham, with his left hand, stops the other guy with his right hand, holds his hand up and says no, and points to his own corner, the opponent's corner, and says they want the fight stopped. Now, I've seen fights where a boxer would never have done that. Abraham would have devastated the other guy while he was weak just to destroy him, to break his jaw, to see him hurt, to see him bleed. He didn't do that. That's sportsmanship. I only wish the Democrats behaved the same way that the boxers do in this that Abraham did in this fight. But unfortunately, we have a vicious Democrat regime right now that does not only not follow the Marquess of Queensberry rules, but they have no concept what the rules are. That's my opening. Play some music for me. We'll take the callers on any topic. 1-800-449. Wonder who. Ba-doo. I like this. Well, let's see. The Cadillac's in the garage again, because I drove it once this year, and it... No, it's a great car, but when they sit around, it's a 65 Caddy, 55,000 miles. I took it out on a hot day 3 weeks ago, and I smelled gas. It wouldn't stop. So I took it into the garage, and they found that the gas tank's leaking. Now they have to send it out, and pipes coming out of the tank. Whatever. I like new cars. New is good, but nothing rides like the 65 Caddy. It's like a baby carriage. Wide track. Remember the era of the wide track, 1965, when the chrome was thick and the women were straight? Remember what America was like? The glass on this car is, I can't give you the millimeters, it's thicker than a new Mercedes 600. Unbelievable. You want to do it health insurance? All right, fine. I'll give you health. Everyone health. Give me 20 prescriptions and crutches and a wheelchair. Give me everything I don't need, and I want it, I'll sue you. What a nation of imbeciles. Everybody's been convinced that they're sick and they need drugs. Whatever happened to self-reliance? Whatever happened to self-control? Whatever happened to preventative maintenance on a human being as well as on a car? Most of us take care of our cars better than we do our children. The things you put into your child's mouth, you wouldn't put into your cat. Artificial colors, artificial flavors, sugar. You wouldn't do that to your dog or cat, but you don't think twice about doing it to your child, do you? Then you wonder why Johnny can't focus. Johnny can't focus because you're making him into a drug addict with what you're feeding him. All right, I've said this before. It's not gone through anyone's head. You know something, 15 years in the radio, I have learned certain things. I'm going through a lot of searching, soul searching, not self-doubt. I've always had self-doubt in my life. That's what's kept me sane and kept me an honest man. But I've not been as soul-searching as I've been recently because I realize that what I'm going through now with the Banned in Britain thing is an epic battle, and it's my last battle. It's the biggest battle of my life. It'll be my last battle, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to win one way or the other, but I may not. In other words, it's good to have hubris, it's good to have confidence, but a man fighting a government, when you have a government as, let us say, intractable as the Labour government is in England today, who fights not by the Marquess of Queensberry rules, but by the rules of the Third Reich in how they smear people. I mean, they released the Lockerbie bomber, a man who killed 250 people, and they sent him home for compassionate reasons and merciful reasons. And me, they put on a list with murderers and terrorists to balance the list out so the Muslim terrorists don't feel bad. So that's what I'm facing. But I'm saying, I'm going through this analysis of myself, and I'm saying, well, what have you learned in all the years you've been on the radio? You've been on the air 15 years. You've said everything you really believe, and you say it forcefully, you say it succinctly, and you say it with belief, and the people love you, and they've rewarded you, they listen to you, they buy your books. What have you learned, though? I learned that you can be very truthful, and you could also lose. I've learned that being direct and blunt and truthful is not only the best way to get what you want. I have learned that if I were more devious, I might have gotten more out of this career and more out of this situation. But I can't be any other way. This is it. A, I'm an Aries. B, I am who I am. C, I was raised the way I was raised. D, I had the background that I had being born in the Bronx to relatively poor people and having to come up the hard way. So I can only be the way I am. I can't be a clever, wise guy from a private school who learned how to screw people over by duplicitousness. I can't do it. Perhaps I should have learned younger how to give people a double talk like an average San Franciscan who smiles to your face and puts a knife in your back. You know, the kind of gentlemanly approach that you see all over the city. I noticed from the day I got here in 1974, full of ex-hippies that give you a big smile up front with the hand out, and behind them they have a hand with a knife in it. You know, A2 Brutus. So you got to be very, very guarded with people who are very nice, because often what do I have to tell you, what you don't know already? Like the guy who sold fake art on Union Square who just got caught selling fake Miro prints. The whole city is Queen Anne front and Mary Ann behind. The entire city is filled with houses that are gorgeous from the front, but they're all stage sets. When I first got here, there was a gay realtor I knew, a really nice guy, and he laughingly said to me, oh, yes, he said, the city's filled with houses that have Queen Anne fronts and Marianne behind, which I thought was hilariously funny, but it was socially very apt. I mean, it actually said it like it is. And that's San Francisco. It's all one giant stage set full of crap. And that's who Nancy Pelosi is, in my opinion. She is the richest woman in the Congress, and she acts as though she's on the side of the poor. Obama acts like he's Robin Hood, out to rob from the rich to give to the poor. We find out that his chief of staff and his other friends from Chicago are making millions of dollars from companies that they left behind that their children are in. And you fall for this, huh? Well, then I have a good Queen Anne front, Marianne behind house for sale, and a fake Miro print. Meet me on Union Square at 10 o'clock tonight. I'm Michael Savage. I'll be right back.
Savage.
Eddie, my love, I love you so. I want it for you. You'll never know.
Walking on the high wire, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 15 years.
Don't make me wait.
Wire that stretches from the Transamerica Tower to the Empire State Building. Welcome to the Savage Nation. You want me to go down memory lane? You want me to do cars? You want me to forget Britain? I may forget it. I'll let my lawyers handle it and just put it out of my mind. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah. You know, it's an amazing career that I'm in. I got to tell you something. On one hand, it's as easy as you can imagine. I make it sound easy. I'm kind of the guy with the lariat. You know who I'm talking about. Will Rogers. We got up and he just twirled a lariat and he made comments and told jokes. And people loved him. Now, when I'm at my best, I can do that without when I don't get angry. He never got angry. See, that's the difference. Is I'm hot-headed. I admit it. I blow up very easily. In that way, I'm an ordinary man. I mean, I'm quick to anger and quick to forget. That's an ordinary man. There's three types of men if you study this from a biblical perspective. The ordinary man is quick to anger and quick to forgive. The evil man is quick to anger and slow to forgive. The saint is slow to anger and quick to forgive. So, I mean, I understand that, but you can't change yourself just because you know what the right thing to do is. So what I'm getting at is, when I hear play Eddie My Love again, I got distracted with thinking. I don't want to think. I'm sick of thinking. Turn on the music again.
Eddie, my love.
All right, let me put back the memory lane cap. Okay, around this period of American history, when this song was big, I'm trying to think back now. I think I would visit cousins in Pennsylvania, and it was the first time I ever heard of a pizza. I didn't know what a pizza was, to show you how. I guess I'm old, man. And I remember they brought a pizza in the house. Everyone was oohing and eyeing downstairs. I was sleeping in the attic with the kids, and we heard that a pizza was coming. And we crept down the steps from the attic, and everyone was staring at an object inside a cardboard box that smelled like vomit. I swear, I mean, you talk about a child, the way a child's perceptions are. The first time I smelled mozzarella cheese, it smelled like vomit. Does it? Is that because the mozzarella cheese was better then or worse then? Was that authentic mozzarella cheese, and today it's like ersatz, like a fake Miro poster? Because everything is ersatz. The buffalo mozzarella is not buffalo, and it's not mozzarella. You know what I'm getting at here or not? I mean, should pizza smell like vomit to be good pizza, is it? It's like beer. I remember I couldn't wait to drink my first beer. So I was 11, 10 years old. And, of course, they wouldn't give me alcohol. But my uncle was a big beer drinker. So I was into magic at that time. Remember this phase in my life now. Magician. I wanted to do magic. So I used to buy these novelties either on when we'd go down, my friend and I, by train to 42nd Street. I'd go into these crazy novelty stores. And one of my favorite novelties was a fake glass of beer. I thought that was the neatest thing I'd ever seen in my 11 years on Earth. It was a glass of beer, fake, with a head of foam on it. And I said, I'm going to trick my uncle. I'm going to put the beer out and say, Uncle, would you like a glass of beer? Like he wouldn't know. Kids are really amazing how innocent they are. And I thought I'd put a little bit of real beer on the top. But I was so disappointed when I pushed the beer out. He laughed. He said, that's a fake glass of beer, isn't it? I was so embarrassed that he knew right away. But I'm saying to you something else. This was an innocent age in America. We didn't have a computer to sit home all day long. And there was a real world. Even to get a trinket, a toy, you couldn't order it online. You had to go to a seedy store on 42nd Street, a novelty, risk the perverts and the kidnappers in order to go in and out of the city. And you came home with a novelty. Not today. Today, a kid doesn't leave the house. He lives in a shell. And when he does go out into the real world, if anything happens, he doesn't know how to deal with it. It's like poison ivy, poison oak. No immunity to it. Actually, it's like H1N1 virus, by the way. You want me to make that analogy? You want me to get political? I would. Why do you think the youngsters are getting very, very severe cases of H1N1? They don't have immunity to it. The older people were exposed to similar strains, not identical, similar strains, flu strains, and have some immunity to this H1N1. It's very interesting how it's attacking teenagers in early 20s and killing them. It is. And the older people are not getting as affected as you would normally expect, because normally the bell curve tells you who dies in an epidemic or who gets severely sick, the very young and the very old. It's not the same here. And it's a very interesting phenomenon. But I remember during the polio epidemic of the early 50s, my father, everyone was in a panic. And they closed down swimming pools. They wouldn't let kids. You know what it was. People were like living in a fantasy land. My dad would take me down to the filthy, dirty Lower East Side where he had a store. I mean, dirty streets, garbage, whatever. And he'd make me walk in the streets with him, hold my little hand. And I said, what are you doing? He said, well, let me explain something to you. He said, if I walk you around these streets, because there are so many germs and because you were so young, your body will develop an immunity to them. I didn't know what it was, but it sounded good. I liked the idea that I would develop an immunity. I didn't know what it was, but it sounded good. And he was right. And the kids who were not exposed, certainly, to these microbes, certainly did get sicker than those who were. And it's the same with life itself. Why do you think that an invading snail can be dropped in a bay off the back of a ship? It comes in, let's say, from China on the back of a freighter, and it swims off in a bay in America, and it wipes out all of the local clams. It wipes out the oysters because it's hardier, and the local oysters don't have an immunity to it. It's the same with invading cultures. Put your moronic heads together. The illegal aliens, whether you love them or you don't love them, are an invading organism in a certain strange way. On a biological level, you know I'm right.
Savage.
Welcome to the Savage Nation. This is yours truly, Michael Savage. The mastermind of the Pan Am bombing over Lockerbie, Scotland, was released to a hero's welcome in Libya. Same left-wing radical Labour government under Gordon Brown decided to release the man who killed hundreds to his home in Libya, where he arrived to a hero's welcome. The very same government that released the Lockerbie bomber for compassionate reasons has denied Michael Savage his freedom of movement and his freedom of speech. Now, I want to pause right here. You've heard it all before. You haven't heard it all before. In a world of hype, and in a world of hype artists, it's very difficult for the average listener to know what's true, what's false, what's real, what's an act, what they should be concerned about. I recognize that. But what if there really is such a case of an innocent man being targeted by an illegitimate government strictly to placate the radical Muslims in that nation, out of fear that the radical Muslims will know that they've been, namely, picked on for good reasons, because you've got people there marching around screaming death to Britain, death to the USA, overthrow Britain, blah, 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 we will kill you, we will do this. You've seen the signs, you've heard it. So the British government is afraid of them, as they should be. But in order to balance this list of excluded individuals, they choose a white man, a conservative from America who has a radio show, in order to balance the list. Now, you would say, well, they have a right to do it. No, my friends, they don't have the right to do it. Don't jump to the conclusion that a nation has the right to exclude somebody simply on the basis of speech. And if this government was so concerned with their fine nation being a place that is an honor to come to, an honor to live in, as I'm sure it is for so many millions of of Brits. Why would they free the Lockerbie bomber to go home to a hero's welcome in Libya? When I saw the new legal findings, which I'm going to talk about today on the Savage Nation, and we just posted a new letter that was released to Jackie Smith with demands in it, and recommendations and demands. It's on michaelsavage.com. Now, you could say, what do I care about? That I care about Obamacare. I do, too. I care about Obamacare, too. I understand what it is. It's socialized medicine. I understand that it's been discovered that Mr. Axelrod, who is the chief of staff for Obama, and certain family members of his, allegedly are going to make millions of dollars from the health care push. Allegedly now. You understand that we can't say that definitively, but even the Associated Press says that Obama's push for national health care overhaul is providing a financial windfall to Democratic consulting firms closely connected to the president and two top advisors, including David Axelrod. Now, of course, if this was Bush and it was Karl Rove, Rove would be history. But I'm not going to talk about that directly. I'm going to talk about this indirectly. Because the very same corruption that exists in this far-left government of Obama exists in the far-left government of Gordon Brown in England. And the very same corruption is being covered up here in the same way that it's being covered up there. And how do they cover their corruption here in America? They attack anybody who attacks Obama as being a racist. Anybody who criticizes Obama is a far-right, right-wing extremist. In England, what do? What did these British public school snobs do? And I say public school because in England it's the reverse of here. If you're rich, you go to a public school, not a private school. British public school snots, who apparently have never worked a day in their life, have been found out in my legal research. And I am going to talk about the insanity of my having to fight to have my name taken off a list of murderers and terrorists, while a true murderer and terrorist, the Islamic fascist who was responsible for masterminding the Lockerbie bombing and the deaths of over 200 people, it was released by the British government, and he went home to Libya to a hero's welcome. Have you seen the footage of him getting on and off the plane in Scotland? Do you see them shaking his hand, the British governmental officials who hate me? The very same Labour governmental officials who hate Michael Savage shook the hands of a real murderer. And he went home to a hero's welcome. The British government under Gordon Brown is suicidal. They have sympathy for those who kill their own people and antipathy for those that would defend them. In researching the emails going back and forth between these snotty public school brats in England, you're not going to believe what we found. I've told you some of it, but you haven't heard all of it. I want you to go to michaelsavage.com at your leisure and look at the new legal letter to Britain. I will summarize some of those points today as I go in and out of the news. The memos are not going to be believed. You're not going to believe them when you read them. You have to see them. And I have to go back again to what I said to you before, that in a world of hype, a world of self-promoters, in a world of people trying to make a name for themselves, it's very difficult for you to take me seriously if you are a born skeptic as I am. I'm a born skeptic. I don't believe anybody, particularly anybody in the media. So it would be natural for you to have some skepticism about what I am saying, but I want you to try to not put aside your skepticism, but try to listen to what I'm saying to you. Just try for a minute. How do you square a government, the British Labour government, releasing the mastermind of the Lockerbie bombing, shaking his hand as he leaves Scotland, and putting me on a list of people to be banned because of my unacceptable behavior? Now, I want you to understand that to the British government under Gordon Brown, speech has become behavior. Do you understand how Orwellian this is? Speech has become behavior. And my speech, although it has never called for violence, may be offensive, may be shocking, may be very offensive and very shocking, as I'm sure it is to many people. It is shocking and offensive to people. I'm aware of that. Do you know that what I found in those emails should make your hair stand up? Do you know that they took statements from the founding of my Paul Revere Society, such as a nation is defined by its borders, language, and culture, and they used that as evidence of why I should be banned from Britain? I'm not making this up. I swear to you. I swear to you. They said that because Michael Savage believes a nation is defined by its borders, its language, and its culture, he has engaged in hateful speech. He has engaged in unacceptable behavior. Because he believes in borders, language, and culture, he has provoked and incited violence. Do you have any idea what this means? It means that the liberals have become the most extreme form of thought police. It means that the liberals have declared conservatives criminal. It means that the liberals in England have criminalized conservative thought and conservative speech, which is why every liberal who really believes in the liberal credo should buy my book, Banned in Britain. You need it as a document. You need to see the proof. You need to see I'm not hyping you. And you need to share it with your liberal friends. It may finally awaken you from your slumber before it is too late. It just might save America from the fate that Britain is suffering under these public school snots. I am one man fighting an entire government. Don't you understand what's at stake? I hope you do. And I hope you understand this is not hype, nor do I care about selling a certain number of books because it will fatten my wallet. I hope you understand that I'm well past that point in my life. And I hope you understand that there's a greater principle in these shows about being banned in Britain and this one man's fight to free his name from this list of murderers and terrorists. I hope you understand.
Savage.
My love must be a kind of blind love. I can't see anyone but you.
Love by the Sewer Plant was written during this summer. Each song has an association for you with a certain summer. First Love by the Sewer Plant. God. It is funny. I mean, it really is. Some other joke. Okay, you can't do it. It's a family show. But it brings back a memory. There was a car wreck. Now that if you don't want me to talk about love and sex, I'll talk about a car wreck. Because this exact summer, I'll never forget it as long as I live. Let me see if I can pace it now. We're talking, forget the year. We're talking about the Catskill Mountains, hot August day. We're talking about a hotel that's long gone called the Riverview Hotel. Small hotel. The people were poor. They weren't poor. They were rich enough to go away for 2 weeks. Rich enough. And it was a nice hotel. And it was run by an ex-pugilist. Whether he was an amateur, professional, I don't know. He's a tough guy with a mug face and cauliflower ears and big hands. And if a busboy got out of hand, he beat him up and threw him off the property. He didn't go to the EEOC. It was crazy. Everyone was afraid of him. But, I mean, the dining room was clean. No one stole cutlery. You know, everyone got fed on time. The rooms were clean. But if any of the guys wised off with him, he'd give him a beating and throw him off the property with his valise out onto Highway 42. That was the place where I told you Jackie Mason first appeared, one of his first appearances. No one knew him. He flopped. The owner threw him out. No one laughed. So the next morning as he's leaving, he gets that one night. He says, all right, kid, get out of here. You're no good. No one laughed. Yeah, it was an oil painting in there. I told you, the next morning, as he's leaving, he's saying goodbye to everybody, the people he met. He's a very nice guy. He has a cardboard valise. I mean, it was unbelievable, with his entire belongings in it. And one of the guys leans down behind him, and the other one pushes him, and he gets pushed into the swimming pool with his only suit, and his valise falls in, and all of his life's belongings are floating around in the water, and he's looking up, and I didn't know who this guy was, but instead of crying or getting mad or angry, I'll kill you, nothing. He laughed at the people who did it to him. He looked at them and laughed at them. And I said, my God, this guy has guts. You know what I mean? He reacted to being thrown in the pool with everything as though it was a big joke and he was in on it. And I knew this guy would go very far because nobody could knock him down. Now, the very same summer, outside the very same hotel, I think it was on Route 42, there was a bang. So the whole family comes running up. We were staying in a little house across from the hotel. We were didn't have the money for the hotel, but we had the use of the facilities. We were friends of the owner, whatever, I don't know. But we ran out, and we come upon a car wreck with a car still smoking. One of the people is wandering around the road dazed. holding his wife's pocketbook, not knowing where he is. There are bodies strewn all over the road. This is a devastating scene. Now, none of us knew first aid. You don't know what to do. It's a shock when you come upon a scene like that. And that's the end of the story. I mean, there's no more to the story. There's no heroism. There's no cowardice. There's no nothing. We called the state troopers and an ambulance came, and that was the end of it. No one knew what to do. What do you do at that point? The point is that was the car wreck. So I was going to ask you a question. What was the worst horror you've ever seen in your life for talk radio? It's not a bad question. I've never even asked it. I know there. I mean, you say, what are you doing here? I'm doing what I want to do. What's the worst thing you've ever seen in your life? I mean, certainly you could bring up terrible things that have occurred in America. You probably forgot 9/11 already. Many of you listening to me in New York on WOR can remember 9/11. San Francisco, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake. What was that like? How about the freeway collapse with cars falling down? Why am I into this kaleidoscopic horror movie? I don't know. It's like my mind became George Gross over the last few days. The fight with the British has turned me into another man. All of my youth, all of my humor and my mirth is going. I'm turning into something before your eyes. They want evil. They want mad. They're liable to get it. You know, you can only torture a person so long. You take a nice dog and you put him on a leash and you keep poking him with a stick. You can turn a poodle into a killer. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. 1-800-449-8255. Did I get bagels for the weekend? I'm trying to think about the weekend now. Because the bagels are all gone now by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Bagel has become a big thing in America. You know, it's very hard to get even a good bagel in America. You got to find without sugar. That's impossible. And everything's like a little cake. They wonder where diabetes came from all of a sudden. You ever see what people eat from morning till night? Krispy Kreme, sugary breads, tiramisu. Everyone goes out to an Italian meal, they eat food, they'll give them a heart attack, and they don't even know the difference. They take a pill. They can all take Lipitor and be safe. That's the medical establishment for you. Now you understand why both the AMA and the Pharmaceutical Association want Obamacare, because they'll get more people sick. There'll be no preventive medicine. There'll be no knowledge of how to keep yourself well. There'll be no alternative medicine in it. It'll be more sick people needing more of their services. You understand this? I know more about this than you can imagine. I probably know more about Obamacare and its devastation than anybody in the American media landscape. I gave you 4 things that you can do to cut costs. Have any of you discussed it? Have you heard it discussed by Larry King? Have you heard Larry King, Garlic Breath, discuss this? Have you heard the schmucks on ABC discuss it once? Here's one point for the schmucks on ABC. Ask yourself if any of these schmucks with nice suits have asked you how come they won't rein in the lawyers? If you were to limit all medical malpractice claims in America to a cap of $250,000, top, California's had it since like the 70s, and the vermin have left the state, or the vermin who still live here and practice this despicable thing called tort law, do it in another state with regard to medical claims. The vermin can't make the money they used to make. How come you haven't heard that discussed? How come every time the imposter, the Joker, gets up to talk about health care, nobody will ask him, you know, President Obama, we trust that you do want to give care to everyone. They've asked him, how can we afford it? And he says, I don't know. But that shouldn't stop me, since I never worked a day in my life. Why should it stop him when he never met a payroll? He doesn't know anything about running a business. Why should it stop him? By his own admission, he never did anything in his life other than put posters on bulletin boards. He's a community organizer. He says, all I did was push paper. He said that once. We have a speech. I never made a product. I only push paper. That's running the country today. You hear this? So no one's ever said to him, how come you don't cap lawsuits? He even said, we even have a soundbite where he says, don't get me wrong, he says to the doctors that he spoke to about 3 weeks ago, I'm not going to impose any limits on lawyers. Why not? The answer is because the trial lawyers put him in power. Trial lawyers are one of his principal support groups. So that's reason enough now to continue to rape the system with these kind of lawsuits? The ambulance chasers should be put out of business. Cap lawsuits. And that's number one. Now, I'll give you another one. No care for illegal aliens unless they pay for it. Sure, they're in a car wreck. You got to treat them. You got to treat them in a car wreck. But not when a kid comes in with the flu and you're spending $10,000 to treat the flu, which I see over and over again. Make them pay for it. Allegedly, $25 billion a year is going back to Mexico alone through Western Union or whatever. Okay? $25 billion untaxed money. They could pay for medical care. We know young guys who work for a living, and they make a decent salary. They're not rich. Do you know if they go to an emergency room, they pay full retail because they have a job? American kids go into an emergency room, they cut a finger, they pay full retail in the emergency room. An illegal alien comes in, he pays nothing. Why is that? You assume every illegal alien's broke? You moron, you. If they're so broke, how do they afford to send money back to Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, etc.? How do they do it? Because you, the moron, permit your politicians to not tax them, number one. So I gave you two ways to control medical costs. One, cap all tort law, cap all legal claims to $250,000. It'll all balance itself out. And the lawyers who do this kind of thing will have to find something else to do for a living. Number two, make illegal aliens pay for their care. I didn't say don't give them care. I said make them pay for it. Now, those two ideas alone would save $1 trillion a year in medical costs, according to studies I've read. You say, what? Where'd you come up with that? People who study defensive medicine costs, defensive medicine is the medicine practiced by doctors to avoid lawsuits. And so they order CT scans, ultrasound, they order tests that they don't need, and then they send the patient on to specialists that they don't need in order to avoid getting sued by one of these shysters. So that's called $500 billion a year could be saved by people who study this arithmetically. So there's $500 billion alone in savings in lawsuits. Some say $250 billion. That's a lot of money. Now, the illegal aliens, it's almost incalculable what they cost us in the hospitals. We know that many border hospitals have gone broke because of it. So I've given you two ways to save between $250 billion to $1 trillion in healthcare costs. Have you heard this discussed once by the frauds on ABC, CBS, NBC, and or CNN, and or MSNBC, and or Fox News? No. Why? Interlocking corporate directorships. Liberals warned us about interlocking corporate directorships in the 60s. Michael Savage is warning you about interlocking corporate directorships in the period in which you are living.
Savage. Warning. The Michael Savage Show contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Here is Michael Savage.
It is Rock and Roll Friday on the Savage Nation, hearkening back to another time in American history. How do you summarize it? Done it 100 different ways. What happened to our borders? How did we elect people who actually take the side of illegal aliens? How did we elect mayors and senators and presidents who tell citizens to drop dead, that non-citizens have their interests and our interests don't count? How do we wind up in a place where all you ask for is voting in English only and they say drop dead? That's racist to vote in your language. We should be able to vote in any language on earth so we can stuff ballots and make sure that more of us demagogues with these next door names get elected. How do we end up in a time when our culture has become so debased? Well, and on and on. It's Rock and Roll Friday. The mic is open to you. There are many topics. I asked you to call with the worst horror thing you've seen in your life if you'd like to talk about horrible things in this hour. Here's one for the records. As vets await checks, VA workers get $24 million in bonuses. Outside the VA department, severely wounded veterans have faced financial hardship waiting for their first disability payment, but inside, money has been flowing in the form of $24 million in bonuses. In scathing reports this week, the VA's Inspector General said thousands of technology office employees at the VA received the bonuses over a 2-year period, some under questionable circumstances. And then there's a whole series of abuses, and they name some of the officials. The official Jennifer S. Duncan engaged in nepotism and got $60,000 in bonuses herself, the IG said. In addition, managers improperly authorized college tuition payments for VA employees, some of whom were Duncan's family members and friends. That cost taxpayers nearly $140,000. What's that? More emails. Separately, anyway, you get the picture. The Veterans Administration has given themselves $24 million in bonuses, engaged in nepotism, huge bonuses, and vets are waiting outside with wounds and disabilities and not getting their checks. And nothing happened. You think Miss Duncan will be tried? Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, Miss Duncan will be tried. Oh, yeah, the official. Oh, yeah, she'll be tried. Oh, yeah, it's a big, big problem here. This is a minor blip on the screen compared to what Obamacare has done. This is nothing compared to what the boys at Goldman Sachs have done, in my opinion. By the way, they're all at Martha's Vineyard. Why do you think Obama's going to Martha's Vineyard for his vacation? Tell me why. Tell me why he's not going to Africa or Saudi Arabia for the holidays. Why is he going to Martha's Vineyard? What's there? Tell me why he chose Martha's Vineyard. They claim he's going to be alone with his family. Oh, yeah, he's going to be alone with his family. No one's going to visit him. I can name about 5 individuals who are billionaires who fly into Martha's Vineyard every summer. I know their names. Big deal. Nothing wrong with being a billionaire. But they're all there, and that's why he's there. They put him in power. They want to make sure that they get their proper payback. What do you think he's doing on Martha's Vineyard? See, I told you years ago when I started in radio, our presidency has become the equivalent of sort of the Queen of England, almost a figurehead position. Now, it is true that they have extraordinary power with the executive action, the stroke of a pen, and Obama used it more than any other president in history within a few weeks of taking office. He's very worrisome. The man has dictatorial tendencies. His statement the other day to religious leaders trying to push Obamacare when he said, "We are God's partner in life and death decisions." Obama said that. We are God's partner in life and death decisions. You talk about an egomaniac and a narcissist. That's why they're at Martha's Vineyard together. So there it is. You're not going to be there. I'm not going to be there. What's so good about Martha's Vineyard that I don't have in my life? Tell me what I would have if I were invited, let's say, and I wouldn't go because I wouldn't go to any club that would have me. I believe Groucho Marx was right. I would be extremely uncomfortable in that setting. What do I have there that I don't have here? What do I need there? I'm not looking to make money through social contacts. I'm not selling anything. I'm not buying anything. So in that sense, I'm just an ordinary American. I got nothing to gain or lose by meeting people like that. I don't need any favors. Well, actually, I could lobby for them to take my name off the list in England. That probably cost me, by last account, let's see, from a New York lawyer who was a big First Amendment lawyer. Oh, hey. Oh, yeah, big First Amendment, gives speeches, does movies. He wanted $400,000 in a suitcase to smear somebody off in England to get me off the list. You hear? Like I didn't know the First Amendment lawyers were not just fronts for the porno mafia. And you actually thought they had principle. Oh, they give speeches at NYU. And now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the heroes of the First Amendment, Arthur Schmuck. Dr. Schmuck, would you please come out here? We give you an honorary degree. What a great man. He's represented every foul-mouthed dirtbag First Amendment pornographer in history. Hey, now I got to tell you that freedom of speech is the most important thing. It's fundamental to the Liberty Bell gong ring. Hey! Oh, these frauds. I'll take a criminal any day over these lousy liars. I can't stand any one of these liberal lawyers. Every one of them's a fraud. They're either representing a drug dealer or a criminal or some other enterprise of that nature. I met them in my life. I know who they are. They all hide behind these noble traditions. Noble traditions. Watch out for the man who espouses noble traditions through in every statement. I know a guy, every time I talk to him, he tells me he's honest. I don't even ask him if he's honest. I don't want to hear whether he's honest or a liar. Just a business relationship. Every conversation, he tells me how honest he is. Reminds me of the First Amendment lawyers that I met. So as I say, that's why I don't want to go to Martha's Vineyard. Don't you love these menus at these dinners that the newspapers always print? They dined on poached salmon, like you can't get it in Safeway. And Chardonnay wine from Washington State. Well, that was $9 right there. Fresh cut green beans au jus. I'm going, oh, wow, a green bean, a salmon, and a bottle of wine. And what they have for dessert? Ice cream? Wow. I once met a guy who, he was like a role model for all the kids in the neighborhood because I told you, he was a club owner way back when no one knew what a club was. But he was a tough guy. Of all the fathers, he was like a fighter, a nightclub owner. And all the kids always gravitate toward the tough father. It's the way it is in a neighborhood. We all idolized him. The nicest guy in the world, gentle, spoke quietly. A pair of hands on him like meat, like sides of beef, the hands. But he never lifted a hand to anybody, and never hurt his children, never hit his wife. In other words, a gentleman, but a real man. So he would sit and lecture us as we got older, because remember, you grow up in a neighborhood, you grow up together. So as we got older, we're 14 now, we'd sit and ask him things, and he would tell us things such as this. He said, what are you worried about money for? He would say, no, don't be worried about money too much. He said, because you can only wear one suit at a time. And now that was a common statement amongst guys in that generation. I didn't even really understand what he meant, but it went in deeply. Now, today I don't even wear a suit, not even one suit at a time. But I understand what he means. You can only wear one suit at a time. I prefer a T-shirt. But what he was saying was something different, meaning don't be obsessed with money. You can only wear one suit at a time. He was trying to tell us there were values different than money. Now, there's nothing wrong with it if you make a lot of money. God bless you. It would have been great to have a lot of money when I was younger, but I didn't. I was too idealistic and too focused on saving the world to have just run after a buck. As it is, it worked out fine. But what I'm saying is, these were the kind of men that were around then. I wonder if there's still men in the neighborhoods who sit down with their guys, with their own son and their son's friends, and talk about such things anymore. I'm not going to be right back. That's like I'm going to take a breather, then take a call before I'm right back. Okay, give me a piece of music, Ray. A little me. I love this. See, love is night. Give me some traveling music. Love Jackie, please. God, I hope there's a heaven. What if there isn't? It's all a racket. God, what am I going to do? All the things I've denied myself. You ever think about that? I know God doesn't want to hear this because he knows everything. What if there's no heaven? Well, you wouldn't know it anyway, so it doesn't matter. What if it's just the film is over? So in other words, you don't look back and say, damn, I should have done that in 1993. That I could have done, but I didn't because I was afraid of going to you-know-where. So it doesn't matter. You don't lose either way. I'll be back.
A white sport coat and a pink carnation. I'm all dressed up for the dance.
It is the Savage Nation. Any topic is open today on it. This is a sad article. I mean, it's alarming that vets are waiting, wounded veterans are waiting for disability payments while some of the vermin inside the administration are robbing bonuses up to $24 million in bonuses were given out. And the vets are sitting and waiting for money. This is an example of government at its worst. This is an example of what happens when you create a bureaucracy. This is an example in a minuscule way of what will happen with Obamacare. You create a new department, you're going to have more corruption. So here you have severely wounded veterans waiting for their disability payments. They're not getting them. And inside, corrupt officials are getting bonuses to the tune of $24 million in bonuses paid out. Separately, a technology office employee became involved in an inappropriate relationship with a high-level official in the Veterans Administration. That girl flew 22 times from where she lived in Florida to D.C., where the VA official lived. That travel cost $37,000. You hear this? And they have names. Of course, they're innocent until proven guilty. Catherine Adair Martinez, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Information Protection and Risk Management in the Office of Information and Technology. They say she misused her position, abused her authority, engaged in prohibited personnel practices when she influenced a VA contractor and later VA subordinates to employ a friend. And then she had an inappropriate relationship with Mr. Howard. Who's Mr. Howard? We have to look up to see who Mr. Howard is. Another genius government official. Now retired somewhere, probably in Beaufort, North Carolina. I don't know where he lives. How did they get away with this? How in the world did they get away? You hold 4 library books 30 days too long, and the black helicopters arrive on your lawn. You take your dog in the wrong walk. Oh, God. So you want to create another government bureaucracy, sure. Single payer, blah, 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 government care, blah, blah, blah. You'll see corruption like you never saw in your life. You'll wind up in a medical clinic with a doctor from a country you can't even pronounce, who doesn't speak English, with blood on the smock and a broken eardrum, and no drugs in the pharmacy. But you'll get medical care the way they do in Cuba. Oh, yeah, you'll get medical care there. Everyone has medical care in Cuba, the way they did in the ex-Soviet Union. No medicines in the shelves, stupid doctors, and unsanitary conditions. That's what's waiting for you. And I don't work for an insurance company. And I've paid for my own medical care my whole life, even when I was poor. I always did. Even when I couldn't afford it, I signed up for a plan that I didn't really like, but it gave me some coverage. You know, thank God I've been very lucky. New York, Cesare, WOR. Go ahead, you're on.
Thank you for taking my call, Michael. The other day you were talking about Van Gogh and how powerful his work is to you. It's the same for me. I was at a show at the Met and saw some.
All right, so you were moved by Van Gogh and
also the way you structure your show. There are two things that are really important in Van Gogh's work, and I think that are really important in your show, and it's conviction and discipline. You know, you have conviction to know what you say, what you believe in.
Well, he and I don't share one thing in common. I don't drink absinthe. You're not asking me to send you an ear, are you? It's not up for sale. I'm not selling it on eBay.
No, I think there's a truth in his work and a truth in what you do. I mean,
yeah. I hope I don't wind up in the same bug house that he wound up in.
He went there on his own. He wasn't sent there.
Yeah, he couldn't take it anymore. Yeah, you know, one of the most touching books is the correspondence between him and his brother, who loved him. Wow, what a beautiful those letters between his brother who loved him and Van Gogh, astounding. You ever read those letters?
Yeah, my father gave them to me.
Look how you grew up with actual art in your life compared to today. Do you still go to the museums, Chester?
Luckily, my father and I are both artists. And
you were very lucky. Today, it's funny. I was wandering around downtown San Francisco, and I stopped in an art gallery with 1880s, 1890s, 1910 era post-impressionist paintings. Just funny. We were talking about it. And these were relatively unknown impressionist artists, but truthfully, some of them are equal to the famous ones in terms of quality from somebody who's just looking at the painting without asking who did it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Amazingly beautiful, amazing work. Like some of the street scenes of Paris. I love those pictures. Anyhow, thanks for the call. It's Friday. 1-800-449. Where's the fog? The fog has disappeared. San Francisco's natural air conditioning, they call it, comes in and out of the gate. It's a great place to live. There used to be a saying in America, it'll be a cold day in August when? Well, we can't use that in San Francisco for obvious reasons. I wish we had another couple of cold days. It's hot already. It's coming in the hot now. The Indian summer comes September, October, which, it's nice. It's overrated. I wish it was regular. You know, it's funny when you grow up somewhere, it's very hard to change the internal patterns inside your body. To me, the summer's over the end of August, Labor Day. Not here. Goes on another 2 months. You can get blind till 8:30 at night. You can't eat dinner. It's like nauseating. I feel like that novel by Myth of Sisyphus. Who wrote the Myth of Sisyphus, baby? I can't. Camus. Camus wrote a book about a character. Whoever can answer this gets a free copy of whatever, of my dental filling X-ray. Camus wrote a book set in Algeria. Oh, they call it The Plague. The Plague. The plage, I think. No, I think that's the swimming pool. I'm not good at French anymore. I studied it for 7 years. Anyway, he wrote a book called The Plague. We'll stick to English, Camus. And in it, he talks about a man who could not take the sun anymore. He was blinded by the light. And it opens with that, and it stuck with me because in many ways, I'm like that character. I actually prefer the night. I don't know if that makes me odd, but I can't wait for nightfall. I feel better when the sun goes down. Isn't this bizarre? You're supposed to embrace the sun. You know, it's very interesting. Maybe there's something to do with whatever. I don't know. I remember reading a story about a man who was always plagued by the heat, and then one day he has a near-death experience, and he comes back from it. And when he wakes up from that near-death experience and he's better, suddenly the sun that once was a glare looks bright to him as it did when he was a child or in a Van Gogh painting.
Savage.
I want to do this with you. I want to take you inside a courtroom. I'm going to act as my own defense attorney. I'm going to ask you, the American people listening to the Savage Nation, conservative, libertarian, liberal, independent, to be the jury.
Hear ye, hear ye. The court of the Savage Nation is now in session. All rise.
I want to read something to you. We discovered the following memo being passed back and forth before they put me on this list of murderers and terrorists. Listen to what one of them said. Savage has a show called The Savage Nation. His views are extreme. He considers immigration, liberalism, and Islam to be the most dangerous threats to the U.S. He broadcasts on approximately 350 stations and receives an estimated weekly audience of 8 million listeners. This is what they wrote to each other. He is the third most popular radio talk show host in America. Now listen very carefully, folks, members of the jury. Here's what they wrote to each other in a summary of why I should be banned from Britain and that my fundamental rights be denied. Quote, Savage is the founder of the Paul Revere Society, which, according to its mission statement, aims to, quote, to take back our borders, our language, and our traditional culture from the left, corroding our great nation, close quote. This was a hit on me because I am a conservative. Now, the very same government that took offense with me because I believe in borders, language, and culture, I want you to listen to Scottish Justice Secretary Kenny McCaskill, another far leftist, explaining why he released the Lockerbie bomber. Listen to clip 2.
Our justice system demands that judgment be imposed, but compassion be available. Our beliefs dictate that justice be served, but mercy be shown. Compassion and mercy are about upholding the beliefs that we seek to live by, remaining true to our values as a people, no matter the severity of the provocation or the atrocity perpetrated.
Rubbish. 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 Where is the compassion and mercy towards Michael Savage? You low-life lout, you. You release an actual murderer who masterminded the blowing up of an airplane and the killing of hundreds of people, saying that you did so out of compassion and mercy, while Michael Savage, because he is a conservative and he is a white male, receives no such compassion and no such mercy. You say that compassion and mercy are the beliefs that you seek to live by, and yet your cohorts in London have no compassion or mercy for a conservative named Michael Savage? That you colluded behind my back to destroy my name and reputation and to deny me free travel and free speech? And you didn't notify me? You didn't give me a chance to explain myself or answer as to whether these statements are actually true? This is your idea of compassion and mercy, Scottish Justice Kenny McCaskill? Listen to clip 3 now.
For these reasons, and these reasons alone, it is my decision that Mr. Abdelbasit Ali Mohamed Al-Megrahi, convicted in 2001 of the Lockerbie bombing, now terminally ill with prostate cancer, be released on compassionate grounds and are allowed to return to Libya to die.
So in other words, if I had a terminal illness and I was going to die, you'd let me into your rotten, stinking nation? Is that what you would do? If I were terminally ill, you'd release me for compassionate grounds? Well, let me tell you something. I ain't going to die so fast. Let me tell you something, Mr. Justice. I'm not going to get sick so fast. And let me tell you something else. I'm going to fight you until the last breath in my mouth. I'll make sure my name is cleared, and I will name you and shame all of you. Before I am through, I will show the world what you have become. I will show them how you have not only acted to defend your own people and your own honor, how you've acted not only to not defend Britain, to not defend your borders, to not defend the English language, to not defend your culture, but to destroy it from within. Whether it be out of cowardice or treason, I'm not sure if it's a combination of one or the both or something else. You talk about compassion and mercy out of one side of your mouth, while your cohorts in London show no such compassion and mercy to a man whose only crime is that he is an outspoken white male conservative, and that is your idea of compassion and mercy? I want you to go to michaelsavage.com and read the new legal letter that was sent by my attorneys, the defamation claim to Jackie Smith. And then I want you to look at the secret emails. Well, I can't give them to you now, but I want you to see the cover copy, the table of contents, and the excerpt for Banned in Britain. And once you look at these documents and put them together, and then you combine them with the fact that the very same Labour government that did this to me, and remember what they did to me. You say, oh, big deal, you can't go to Britain. You didn't want to go anyway. Well, you have to see the larger point. That denies me my freedom of movement, which is a denial of my fundamental civil rights. It denies me a freedom of movement. Do you understand that? It's a denial of the European Commission on Human Rights laws. It's a denial of the U.S. Bill of Rights. It's a denial of British law itself. It's a denial of everything that is decent about democracies. It is something you would see out of North Korea. Didn't North Korea just arrest 2 people for entering its soil that they didn't approve of politically? Weren't 2 journalists just released from North Korea by Bill Clinton because they dared wander into that sacred nation without permission? This is something for you to behold. The very same government of the United States of America under Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama that wants to continue the open border policy started by Bill Clinton and magnified and amplified by George Bush, the open borders with Mexico, where drug dealers can walk right across the border, says nothing about a legitimate American broadcaster with millions of followers being unable to go across the borders of Britain. Don't you see what's at stake here? Don't you understand what's at stake here? Ladies and gentlemen of the Savage jury, I rest my case.
Savage.
Sincerely. Oh, you know how I love you.
That is a nice song for Rock and Roll Friday, and now I'm going to just cool her down. Cool her down, Mike. It's Friday afternoon. Most people could care less about your problems. They're tuning in to get entertained. Here you get mad at liberals. That's all. So what can you do? By the way, I am proud to announce that after only a few days on Facebook, we have thousands and thousands of friends on the Michael Savage page. Godric, what's the name of the thing so they could find it on Facebook? I don't even know what. Well, write it out for me. We're in the middle of a show here. We have thousands of friends on Facebook, and one of them just wrote us, Michael Savage, I have a nickname for Henry Waxman of Los Angeles, the congressman who originally pushed health care, but because he was so, let us say, unpalatable to the public that they moved him off the stage. Remember in the beginning you couldn't get rid of Nostroman? Wherever you looked, there he was, pushing his mug around. Then the minute they ran into trouble, they got rid of him. That's how they work, by the way. She said, I've come up with a nickname for Henry Waxman. His name is Nostradamus. Thank you, Eleanor. I appreciate that. Henry Waxman is now Nostradamus. Somebody should be in touch with Eleanor and see if she wants to become a namesmith for my show, because I love that. I've been called names, so why can't I call them back? Names will never harm me. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. Facebook.com/Borders Language Culture. What is that? Otherwise, there's people faking my name. Yeah. The only way to get on my Facebook account is go to Facebook.com/ it's too many things, Borders Language Culture. But be careful, you may be banned in Britain for wanting Borders Language and Culture. Be careful, you may not be allowed into the land of Winston Churchill anymore. Nickname for Henry Waxman, Nostradamus. You heard it first in the Savage Nation. That's cute. It's affectionate. What else do you want to talk about? Let's see. We got good callers. Very nice callers. Healthcare, leave me alone already. Gwen in New York, WOR. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Gwen. Yes, go on. You're on the radio.
I just want to say that I agree with Dr. Savage. I'm not a staunch conservative like him, but I think it's outrageous.
Wait a minute. I am him.
Right. Okay, I realize that. But I'm saying I think it's outrageous that the UK would ban you. Okay,
you help me by putting it up on your legal website and start getting lawyers who are full of sound and fury about the First Amendment to help me.
Definitely put it up on my Facebook account. I will definitely do that, and I'll start a cause because.
All right. Okay, Gwen. What is your Facebook account name?
Oh well, basically you just do a search, Escort, and you could. Definitely, it has all of my, it has...
All right, well, it's a lot of stuff to remember, but if you are a legal analyst, maybe you want to get involved, and I thank you very much. Maybe we'll put her up on michaelsavage.com, where you should go to read the Banned in Britain book and order it over the weekend. It's a good weekend to read the table of contents. It's like a black hole. I don't understand weekends, the weekend psychology. You remember Jean-Luc Godard from the 60s, the avant-garde film director? He did a movie called Weekend. Remember about the madness of the weekend where the French would just get in cars and get into accidents all weekend long? I mean, that is sort of how the weekend looks like to me. What is the weekend for? All week I work for the weekend, and I can't wait for Monday. It's a phenomenon. I can't figure it out, no matter how I try to rationalize, how it works. All week I'm struggling to get through the show, get through the week. It's stressful, terrible. And then by Friday, thank God it's Friday, and you fall off the edge into Saturday and Sunday. I can't wait for the show on Monday. I do a show on Monday. I'm exhausted at the end of the show. And I say to myself, I'm not doing it anymore. It's over. I'm not going to do another radio show. By the morning, I want to do radio again. And no matter how I rationalize this, I can't make a cohesive whole out of this thing. It's amazing to me. I can't make a cohesion out of it. It's not cohesive. It's an up and down phenomenon. But thank God it's Friday. I mean, it's a beautiful weekend. I'll probably do what I do on every weekend, which is a combination of nothing, staring at San Francisco Bay, sleeping and going out on my boat, and eating too much, and drinking too much, and grousing too much, like any other weekend. The boat is the good part of it. Very good part of it. By the way, can I do this on the radio without giving out the name and all? My boat is up for sale because I bought a new boat. And I don't know how to tell you where because you're going to get tire kickers and they're going to bother the dealer. I have the cleanest boat in the world because I'm a fanatic. I'm a maniac with boats. And people don't believe I can keep a boat that's actually better than new. Anyway, it's for sale. I'm not going to sell it on the show. But it's with a boat dealer. So you're never going to meet me anyway. But I don't want you on the boat if you're just going to. I wouldn't even want a liberal to look at it. I'm afraid, like, if they leave, they could leave like a virus on the wheel. Anyway, I'll tell you what we'll do. This Facebook.com/BordersLanguageCulture. Go to Facebook and tell me you want to buy the boat. Yeah, you want to buy the boat. Oh, sure. You want to buy the boat. You and the ACL, you want to buy the boat. But I got another boat coming in. I bought it in Florida. It's got to come in through the Panama Canal. It's being shipped on a ship. I can't believe what we have in this world today. They can load a boat on a ship, and it goes through a Panama Canal, and then it gets offloaded in Ensenada, then it gets picked up and driven up, piloted up here to the San Francisco area. It's amazing to me. It's like it moves 3,000 miles, but actually you only drive it for like 500 up the coast. You couldn't have done this 10 years ago. You could float it on a boat. It's because the containerized service, they can put it on a ship. I know a fellow with a large boat. He sent it here by truck. He had to truck it over from Fort Lauderdale, and he said that the trucker said he'll never do it again because the driver had a zigzag to stay off certain interstates, whatever. I think it's less harm on a boat to put a boat on a boat because it floats rather than getting like vibratorial shock. It's not even a word. There's a lot of words people make up, like I just made one up, vibratorial shock. There's no such thing. Like there's a word people misuse. They say not strategy or strategize. Strategery they use. That's not a word. Where'd that come up from in the media? They're going to do a strategery on something. Did Bush was the first to make it up? There should be a whole lexicon of Bush word, Bushism, strategery, nuclear. We're going to have a nuclear meltdown unless we put up red lights, green lights, and yellow lights for me to get reelected. You hear that came out today? His former Department of Homeland Security head, what's the gentleman's name? I'm sorry, I'm slipping here. Tom Ridge, who will be on the show next week, has put out a book where he says he was forced to put up red lights, yellow lights, and green lights in order to scare the public into getting George Bush elected. George Bush, that's what a slip of the tongue. George Bush. To get George Bush reelected. To get George Bush reelected in 2004, Tom Ridge, the Homeland Security Director at that time, claims that he was strong-armed into putting up false terror alerts. I knew it then. Don't you remember what I used to say? I said, what, are they kidding me? They want us to vote for someone, so they put up a red alert. We're supposed to now look under our mattresses for an Islamo-terrorist? I knew that they were pushing us our buttons. Don't you remember this? We don't need a Department of Homeland Security. I know it's going to get me in more trouble than I'm already in. Tell me what they've done. I don't understand it. They couldn't stop the H1N1 flu, but I told them to close the border. They called everyone who said that a racist. Now they're telling you to get a flu shot. You have a montage of Bushisms? All right, here's a montage of statements from George Bush.
The United States is looking forward to eating Indian mangoes.
Too many good docs are getting out of business. Too many OBGYNs aren't able to practice their love with women all across this country.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
You're working hard to put food on your family.
Then you wake up at the high school level and find out that the literacy level of our children are appalling.
He's learned a lot about ranching since that first year when he tried to milk the horse. What's worse, it was a male horse.
Well, you kind of miss him. This is the thing I found out about presidents after I've been around a while. It was a strange phenomenon. After Clinton left and Bush was in office, I couldn't get used to Bush. George Bush was too Bush for me. And I used to look back and say, I missed Clinton a little. I'm talking stylistically. Now that Bush is gone, I actually have nostalgia for George Bush. Go figure this out. Imagine I would want George Bush back compared to, well, at least he didn't do the things that this one's doing. I mean, George Bush didn't take away fundamental liberties of Americans. George Bush didn't threaten to turn us into a socialist nation on an express train. He did it on a local. George Bush took us to Moscow on a local. This one is skipping a few stations and trying to do it on an express. All aboard? Do you miss George Bush as much as... What a slip of the tongue that was. Well, that's what they accused him of, didn't they? Beowulf, didn't they accuse him of being too Butch? He was too much like John Wayne. They wanted a kinder, gentler George Bush. And he said, bring it on. Victory, a mission accomplished. Terrible what they're doing in Iraq. After we liberated the Shia, they're blowing them up again. Now the boys, what they go there for? Don't you remember George Bush said that the Iraq war would pay for itself? Remember him and Cheney said the Iraq war would pay for itself for oil? Have we been paid back yet? No. $1 trillion minimum. They're swimming in oil. One of those, I think the fourth largest reserve on Earth, or the third or the second. It's in Iraq. You know? No war for oil? Well, wait a minute. We had a war. Can we get some oil and get paid back? That would go a long way towards balancing the budget. And if you want to start declaring payments due, we the taxpayer, okay, Iraq, oil, $1 trillion in oil. Mexico, how many trillions of dollars do you think it's cost America net in medical, legal, whatever care for people who are non-citizens? They're nice people by and large. They're family-oriented by and large. I actually like them as people. I want to make that clear, but we are a sovereign nation. It is illegal to break into the country and act like a citizen. How much do you think they owe us, and why don't they pay us in oil? Mexico has in the top 4 oil reserves on Earth. They could pipe it. You wouldn't even need a ship. So there it is. You want some payments? You want some payments on a debt? There it is. That's why I'm not in government.
Savage.
Warning. The Michael Savage Show contains language. adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Here is Michael Savage.
Here's what I've been talking about today on the Savage Nation. You know, last night I was watching an amazing boxing match on television. There was a guy named Arthur Abraham, and he was fighting this Turkish guy named Mahir Oral. They were both born in Germany, and they were actually engaged in a civilized fight. Abraham is the middleweight champion. Mahir Oral was the challenger. Very handsome, movie star quality guy. Amazing fight. Now, I know there are leftists who say that boxing is brutish and should be banned, but they forget that boxing has rules. They forget that the referee actually stops the fighting when someone makes a low blow or when one boxer gets too beaten up. It's a fight, but it's a fight with civilized limits, and that was last night's fight. And I'll tell you more about it another time, but that's one of the fundamental parts of Western culture, civilized limits. That's why it's called Western civilization. We're human beings. We fight, we argue, but we have rules for doing it. In fact, the rules for boxing were developed in England in the 1860s and were called the Marquess of Queensberry Rules after the noblemen who endorsed them. Now, in that era, the British had civilized limits on their sports, their media, their society, and certainly their government. But today, there are no limits. No limits on the media, which is free to broadcast the most far-left rubbish imaginable. No limits on society, as though you can see from the drunken sluts that stumble through the streets of London at night. And no limits on government, which acts to revoke the freedoms of its own citizens and others at will. And in our own country, there seems to be no civility when it comes to the Chicago gang under Obama with regard to picking on anybody who opposes his attempt to turn America into a socialized nation. It's Friday. Joining us now is our eye on Hollywood, James Herson.
Thanks, Michael. All of a sudden, we have a reality show crime wave going on here. VH1 has canceled the reality show that's titled Megan Wants a Millionaire. The reason? A contestant on 3 episodes of the show, a guy named Ryan Alexander Jenkins, was named as a person of interest and is the subject of an international manhunt in a murder investigation.
What?
The police want to question Jenkins about this 28-year-old swimsuit model, Jasmine Fiore, who was found stuffed in a suitcase and dumped in a trash bin in Buena Park in Orange County. Fiore once worked for Playboy, promoting golfing events. The former reality star has now been charged with murder. And in a macabre connection with Hollywood, the corpse of the woman was found with her teeth and fingers removed, a key part of the plot of a film now in movie theaters, The Perfect Getaway. And despite all the media coverage that names Jenkins as someone the cops are after, he's not come forward, he's not made himself available, so the officers believe he's on the run. In fact, sheriffs in Washington state say that someone saw a person that looked like Jenkins driving a black SUV, pulling a boat right near the Canadian border. I mean, he's from Calgary. And then later on, the deputies found an abandoned black SUV pulling a boat, indicating that he may have crossed the border on foot. I mean, it sounds like a script. And Jenkins was really into Hollywood. He was a budding reality show star. I mean, besides being featured as one of the millionaires on Megan Wants a Millionaire, Jenkins was scheduled to appear on another VH1 show called I Love Money. In January, he would have been one of the contestants that competed for a cash prize of $250,000 and be on his way to becoming a reality show celebrity. And speaking of reality celebs, the hit Fox show called So You Think You Can Dance had employed a salsa dance instructor. He was a choreographer, too, and this was to help the reality stars with their footwork. The reality show dance teacher, Alex Da Silva, was arrested at his North Hollywood home this week on a felony warrant that charged him with sexually assaulting 4 females. 4 females he was teaching dance to. The DA says the charges include 4 counts of forcible rape and a bunch of other charges that I can't mention, and his bail is really high, $6.2 million. I mean, that's the kind of bail we use for Gitmo terrorists. The dance teacher was arrested before. The police took him in last April. They held him in jail for a little while, but the DA let him go because they said there wasn't enough evidence. Apparently now there's more evidence. And at that time, his lawyer hinted at the defense, saying that the whole thing was a misunderstanding of, get this, quote, the difference between seduction and rape.
That's Hollywood mentality for you.
You know, outside the sound stages where reality shows are produced, the Hollywood community was appalled. They were shocked by a poster that depicted President Obama as the Heath Ledger Joker character from the movie The Dark Knight. Now, a Florida prosecutor is looking into possible felony charges in connection with the posters. These are the posters that show Obama as that Batman villain, and the word socialism is printed above and below the president's face as he wears that same famous makeup that was worn by Ledger. Now, an unidentified teen is alleged to have glued dozens of the posters to city light poles, public buildings, bridge overpasses, road signs, and a mailbox. To get around the First Amendment, the potential charge that they're talking about against this guy is felony vandalism, which could land this teenager in jail for up to 5 years. But we have heard nothing in the media about who it was that created the Joker poster. Well, you know why? That's because the artist, it turns out, the guy who created the Joker poster is a liberal Palestinian. Guess there's no news value in that. Imagine if the guy had turned out to be a conservative, an Obama critic, or a Michael Savage fan like I am. There would have been front page news, a mini-series, a 60 Minutes special, and a deal for a Hollywood movie. Thanks, Michael, for your perseverance. Back to you, my friend.
Thanks for the report, James. This is the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere.
Savage.
Don't worry, it's the Savage Nation. Just setting the mood with sitar music. Don't get panicked. All right, so here's the shot. I live in a very liberal area. Most of the people are drugged, either on Prozac-related compounds, cocaine, marijuana, crank. It's hard to say. They're all white middle-class liberals, the type that still drive around with Obama Biden bumper stickers and think that they're doing just swell. So I'll give you an example of the kind of things you put up with in liberal communities. Here's an article in a local newspaper. It says, sea lions swarming long-abandoned seal rocks. It says they can hear the sea lions off Seal Rocks on Ocean Beach, and they're saying, I've never seen mass clumps of sea lions like this. Now, normally, that would be a good thing, that there's an awful lot of sea lions. But because liberals believe in, well, we don't know what they believe in. I think they believe in global warming. And, of course, this should be something good that there's a lot of sea lions, right, to a lib? They're turning it into something bad because the sea lions are making a lot of noise, disturbing their seances. Last night I go into a restaurant, little fish joint. I wanted to just slip in, slip out, have a piece of fish, an overpriced piece of garbage. $16.95 for a sliver of ahi, mahi, wahi, dahi, duhi. You know, everything's cutesy-wootsy. They rip you off in the Bay Area wherever you go on food. The people take it because they're schmucks and they don't answer back. So the young lady serving me looked like a nice kid. I try to talk to people. They don't know who I am naturally because on radio no one knows who you are. And I ask her this, I ask her that. So I said, well, what are you doing? You go to school? Yes, I'm going to a junior college. I said, what do you hope to do? She said, well, I want to go on and get an MSW. I said, that's nice. And what are you going to do with that? She says, well, I want to teach people how to work the system. I said, oh, really? I said, but the system's broke. There's nothing left to work. She says, well, there's plenty left to work, and I want to show people how to work the system. Classic left-wing Marin County brat raised by hippie, pot-smoking, left-wing bums who work the system their whole life, teaching this child to work the system when there's no system left because it's been milked dry. So I said, you're working a very hard job here, aren't you? You're not working the system. You're working two jobs. Why would you teach someone how to work the system who doesn't want to work at all? She says to me, well, that's an interesting way to look at it, and she walks away in a huff. Nobody confronts these people with reality. Liberals and their children don't know what world they're living in. They haven't any idea what world they're living in. Play some music.
All the stories have been told of kings in days of old, but there's no England now. All the wars that were won or lost somehow don't seem to matter very much anymore. All the lies we were told.
Yes, I'm playing Living on a Thin Line because there's no England anymore, especially under the libs. Turn it off. It's a British song. I'd rather play American music. It's Rock and Roll Friday. Play some good old-fashioned American rock and roll. That's it. The way rock and roll was before the British came in and completely changed it. Play it louder.
I'd like to wake up and ride.
This is how we play it in America. Loud, blasting down the freeway. When the chrome was thick and the women were straight. Oops. Is that illegal to say? Okay, now give me some Speedo. I haven't heard that in a while.
Now they up and call me Speedo, but my real name is Mister.
Not bad. Break that record. I forgot why I hadn't played it in a while. No good. Give me something else. That's nice. It's fast enough. Listen to these guys. What are they doing today? If they're not dead, they're playing at a casino somewhere or a retirement home. It's depressing. Cut it out. Give me some Rammstein instead.
We're all living in America.
Much better.
America is wunderbar. We're all living in America.
All right, I've said this before. It's not gone through anyone's head. You know something, 15 years in the radio, I have learned certain things. I'm going through a lot of searching, soul-searching, not self-doubt. I've always had self-doubt in my life. That's what's kept me sane and kept me an honest man. But I've not been as soul-searching as I've been recently because I realize that what I'm going through now with the Banned in Britain thing is an epic battle, and it's my last battle. It's the biggest battle of my life. It'll be my last battle, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to win one way or the other, but I may not. In other words, it's good to have hubris, it's good to have confidence, but a man fighting a government, when you have a government as, let us say, intractable as the Labour government is in England today, who fights not by the Marquess of Queensberry rules, but by the rules of the Third Reich in how they smear people. I mean, they released the Lockerbie bomber, a man who killed 250 people, and they sent him home for compassionate reasons and merciful reasons. And me, they put on a list with murderers and terrorists to balance the list out so the Muslim terrorists don't feel bad. So that's what I'm facing. But I'm saying, I'm going through this analysis of myself, and I'm saying, well, what have you learned in all the years you've been on the radio? You've been on the air 15 years. You've said everything you really believe, and you say it forcefully, you say it succinctly, and you say it with belief, and the people love you, and they've rewarded you, they listen to you, they buy your books. What have you learned, though? I learned that you can be very truthful, and you could also lose. I've learned that being direct and blunt and truthful is not only the best way to get what you want. I have learned that if I were more devious, I might have gotten more out of this career and more out of this situation. But I can't be any other way. This is it. A, I'm an Aries. B, I am who I am. C, I was raised the way I was raised. D, I had the background that I had being born in the Bronx to relatively poor people and having to come up the hard way. So I can only be the way I am. I can't be a clever, wise guy from a private school who learned how to screw people over by duplicitousness. I can't do it. Perhaps I should have learned younger how to give people a double talk like an average San Franciscan who smiles to your face and puts a knife in your back. You know, the kind of gentlemanly approach that you see all over the city. I noticed from the day I got here in 1974, full of ex-hippies that give you a big smile up front with the hand out, and behind them they have a hand with a knife in it. You know, A2 Brutus. So you got to be very, very guarded with people who are very nice, because often, what do I have to tell you, what you don't know already? Like the guy who sold fake art on Union Square who just got caught selling fake Miro prints. The whole city is Queen Anne front and Mary Ann behind. The entire city is filled with houses that are gorgeous from the front, but they're all stage sets. When I first got here, there was a gay realtor I knew, a really nice guy, and he laughingly said to me, oh, yes, he said, the city's filled with houses that have Queen Anne fronts and Mary Ann behinds, which I thought was hilariously funny, but it was socially very apt. I mean, it actually said it like it is. And that's San Francisco. It's all one giant stage set full of crap. And that's who Nancy Pelosi is, in my opinion. She is the richest woman in the Congress, and she acts as though she's on the side of the poor. Obama acts like he's Robin Hood, out to rob from the rich to give to the poor. We find out that his chief of staff and his other friends from Chicago are making millions of dollars from companies that they left behind that their children are in? And you fall for this, huh? Well, then I have a good Queen Anne front, Mary Ann behind house for sale, and a fake Miro print. Meet me on Union Square at 10 o'clock tonight. I'm Michael Savage. I'll be right back. I told you the other day that the ABC newsman Charles Gibson won't talk to Cindy Sheehan because she's still against the war. She hasn't stopped protesting the way most liberals have. She's a leftist of the first order, but at least she's consistent. Listen to her call out Obama on Afghanistan. Go, girl.
The only change I've seen in foreign policy is, unfortunately, things are getting worse in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and we just need to be, in the anti-war movement, we need to revive our anti-war sentiment, because people are dying, our soldiers are dying, and we need to give the president the moral backbone he needs, because we have the moral high ground saying it was wrong under George Bush, and it's still wrong under Barack Obama.
Now, you've heard me talk about the military-industrial complex. Well, she talks about it here as well.
People are profiting. The military-industrial complex and the war profiteers still profit, whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan. There's got to be ways that we can do this strategically that doesn't involve violence. And Barack Obama, I'm saying, he is a bright person. He's an intelligent person. Can we figure something out that doesn't involve killing innocent people?
Yeah. And meanwhile, Obama keeps up the propaganda of why we're in Afghanistan.
America, our allies and partners, and above all, the Afghan people, share a common interest in pursuing security, opportunity, and justice. We look forward to renewing our partnership with the Afghan people as they move ahead under a new government. I want to again congratulate the Afghanistan people on carrying out this historic election and wish them a blessed month as they come together to welcome the beginning of Ramadan.
Well, let's just hope his Christmas greetings sound as heartfelt. With the stories that the midstream media pushes all over the newspapers and television, it's very easy to miss something small. For example, in South America, there may be something small that may be important in our ongoing war on drugs. Joining us now from the Heritage Foundation is Ray Walser to talk about what's going on now in Colombia.
it's a pleasure to talk with you about an issue in Latin America that has emerged on the scene in the last 2 to 3 weeks. This is the decision of the United States government, the Obama administration, to actually take a very forward-looking, active step in the battle against cocaine production, against terrorism in Colombia. And what is happening here is that the U.S. and Colombia are negotiating an agreement. It's not finalized yet, so we don't have all the details, that will allow us to move surveillance aircraft, anti-drug aircraft from a base that they had in northern Ecuador called Manta to use of facilities in Colombia. Now, what was taking place in Manta is part of what the U.S. calls a forward operating location. It's a sort of a fancy name, but it basically means a platform, an airfield from which you can conduct U.S. surveillance operations, intelligence gathering, particularly targeting drug trafficking. Manta was well placed in the upper part of South America for overflying the eastern Pacific, all the way up towards sort of Central America. We have another forward operating base in El Salvador, and one in Aruba, and then in Curacao, which cover the Caribbean. So you had sort of coverage. You're on the lookout for illegal drug flights, small planes, and also, to the best you can, to detect ships or submersibles, these new sorts of semi-submarines that the traffickers are using to haul cocaine towards the United States. Well, anyway, a left-leaning president of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, decided to not renew the lease that we had at Manta. And so what is going on at this particular point is that we're transferring these counter-drug operations to Colombia.
Won't this hurt our air coverage?
Now, the coverage will not be quite as good. They'll have to reconfigure. The main air bases are on the sort of the eastern side of the Andes, so you won't get the same Pacific coverage that you had at Manta, but you're readjusting your coverage of cocaine movements from Colombia and surrounding areas. Now, what this has created is a great sort of furor, particularly led by Hugo Chavez. Chavez says, the United States is putting bases, which it is not. He says it is threatening Venezuela's security, which it is not. And therefore, he has been running around. He's been trying to stir up great opposition in Latin America. And a lot of people sort of jumped on his bandwagon initially. And now, as more details are being learned about the basing, I hate to use I don't use the word base, the agreement to allow U.S. aircraft to land and fly out of Colombia, people are sort of stepping back from the Chavez position. Chavez continues to beat the anti-American drum. He says that the empire, which he calls us, is back. It's threatening his national security. We want his oil wells, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, he's spending a good deal of time, I maintain, covering up for his rather questionable activities.
What kind of questionable activities?
Supplying sophisticated armaments to the narco-terrorist of the FARC in Colombia. He's going in September, we understand, on a road trip. He's headed to Russia, probably where he will purchase additional military hardware, perhaps tanks. Then he'll stop off with his good friends in Iran before heading back, probably coming to the United States, maybe to attend the United Nations, to denounce the United States for its aggressive actions against him. Anyway, what we see at this point is the U.S., at least on the security front, under the Obama administration, holding firm on the importance of Colombia, of getting it right there, of continuing the progress that has been made. I'll add as a sort of a footnote, Colombia cocaine production or coca production this year was down about 18%, so people can't say that you're not making a dent in coca production in Colombia. The FARC is very much on the run. So this agreement, I think, is a positive in terms of strengthening U.S. security presence in the region, and secondly, kind of a good way of beginning to put Mr. Chavez back in his place.
Ray Walser, thanks for the information and the update. It's Rock and Roll Friday on the Savage Nation. Play some rock and roll.
Eddie, my love, I love you so. I want it for you. You'll never know.
Walking on the high wire, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 15 years.
Don't make me wait.
Wire that stretches from the Transamerica Tower to the Empire State Building. Welcome to the Savage Nation. You want me to go down memory lane? You want me to do Cars? You want me to forget Britain? I may forget it. I'll let my lawyers handle it and just put it out of my mind. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah. You know, it's an amazing career that I'm in. I got to tell you something. On one hand, it's as easy as you can imagine. I make it sound easy. I'm kind of the guy with the lariat. You know who I'm talking about. Will Rogers. We got up and he just twirled a lariat and he made comments and told jokes. And people loved him. Now, when I'm at my best, I can do that without when I don't get angry. He never got angry. See, that's the difference. Is I'm hot-headed. I admit it. I blow up very easily. In that way, I'm an ordinary man. I mean, I'm quick to anger and quick to forget. That's an ordinary man. There's 3 types of men if you study this from a biblical perspective. The ordinary man is quick to anger and quick to forgive. The evil man is quick to anger and slow to forgive. The saint is slow to anger and quick to forgive. So, I mean, I understand that, but you can't change yourself just because you know what the right thing to do is. So what I'm getting at is, when I hear play Eddie My Love again, I got distracted with thinking. I don't want to think. I'm sick of thinking. Turn on the music again.
Eddie, my love.
All right, let me put back the memory lane cap. Okay, around this period of American history, when this song was big, I'm trying to think back now. I think I would visit cousins in Pennsylvania, and it was the first time I ever heard of a pizza. I didn't know what a pizza was, to show you how. I guess I'm old, man. And I remember they brought a pizza in the house. Everyone was oohing and eyeing downstairs. I was sleeping in the attic with the kids, and we heard that a pizza was coming. And we crept down the steps from the attic, and everyone was staring at an object inside a cardboard box that smelled like vomit. I swear, I mean, you talk about a child, the way a child's perceptions are. The first time I smelled mozzarella cheese, it smelled like vomit. Does it? Is that because the mozzarella cheese was better then or worse then? Was that authentic mozzarella cheese, and today it's like ersatz, like a fake Miro poster? Because everything is ersatz. The buffalo mozzarella is not buffalo, and it's not mozzarella. You know what I'm getting at here or not? I mean, should pizza smell like vomit to be good pizza, is it? It's like beer. I remember I couldn't wait to drink my first beer. So I was 11, 10 years old. And, of course, they wouldn't give me alcohol. But my uncle was a big beer drinker. So I was into magic at that time. Remember this phase of my life now. Magician. I wanted to do magic. So I used to buy these novelties either on when we'd go down, my friend and I, by train to 42nd Street. I'd go into these crazy novelty stores. And one of my favorite novelties was a fake glass of beer. I thought that was the neatest thing I'd ever seen in my 11 years on Earth. It was a glass of beer, fake, with a head of foam on it. And I said, I'm going to trick my uncle. I'm going to put the beer out and say, Uncle, would you like a glass of beer? Like he wouldn't know. Kids are really amazing how innocent they are. And I thought I'd put a little bit of real beer on the top. But I was so disappointed when I pushed the beer out. He laughed. He said, that's a fake glass of beer, isn't it? I was so embarrassed that he knew right away. But I'm saying to you something else. This was an innocent age in America. We didn't have a computer to sit home all day long. And there was a real world. Even to get a trinket, a toy, you couldn't order it online. You had to go to a seedy store on 42nd Street, a novelty, risk the perverts and the kidnappers in order to go in and out of the city. And you came home with a novelty. Not today. Today, a kid doesn't leave the house. He lives in a shell. This is the Savage Nation.
Savage.
British snobs declare borders, language, and culture a crime. I've been reading through the legal background on my being banned in England, and I was absolutely shocked You talk about shock jocks. How about shock pals? The emails I've received from my attorney were written by a group of snot-nosed defeat snobs from private schools who apparently have never worked a real day in their lives. I was shocked by these shock pals at the clinical efficiency of their emails to each other. When they were discussing whether or not to ban a radio talk show host from America by putting him on a list with terrorists and murderers, it looked as though I was reading archival documents from the Third Reich. I could not believe the coolness with which they analyzed whether to ban me or what effects it might have. They even debated whether to notify me in advance. They had the nerve to say to each other that they wouldn't notify me because they didn't know where I lived. How could they know so much about me but not know where I live, when their own memos say that I'm syndicated by Talk Radio Network? How could they not know how to reach me when I have an audience of 8 million? Clearly, they had no intention of giving me an opportunity to defend myself. Clearly, the Brits wanted to make sure I had no chance to respond to the ban before it was a done deal. That's not democracy, is it? Is that fair play? What's even more interesting is if you look at these emails, they warn each other to be careful because I'm liable to gain an audience that I didn't have as a result of the publicity this would generate. Well, they were right about that. But you know what? I'd rather have the audience I had before and not have a target placed on my back by an entire nation. But they go further, and they say that if we do have any negative consequences by banning Savage, they're going to cover their tracks. This is all in their emails. They have a complete set of talking points as to how they intend to respond. One of these snots states that banning me is in no way meant to inhibit free discussion of ideas. You hear this? That's ridiculous. In every other memo, they say I advocate borders, language, and culture. They are clearly threatened by these ideas and these ideals, and they want our ability to express them. Borders, language, and culture are now a crime in liberal England. Yes, my friends, it's everything I warned you about. They want to take apart your nation at the joints. They want to flood you with illegal immigrants. They want to water down your language, and they do want to decimate your culture. Everything I have warned you about for 15 years has come out in these despicable emails written by these British shock pals. You must read these emails by buying Banned in Britain, which can be found only on michaelsavage.com. Sacramento, Siobhan, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Michael Savage, I think I have figured out why you're so spectacular and why you understand things that the other conservative talk show hosts don't get. I think you personally vibrate at a very, very high level, a level that can see through all the muck and all the lies of all these politicians, and I think you scare the heck out of them.
Let's go back to your original call, Siobhan. You say I vibrate at a different level. What do you mean by vibrate?
Well, there's this theory of vibration, and like Jesus Christ was a high vibrator. They say when he would walk into a town, the whole feeling of the town would change because of his vibration. And high vibration is somebody that understands the truth, that can see a situation that's very deceptive but can see through it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you do. No matter what.
Well, we ought to play Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. I think that's what we should play. Thanks for the compliments. Guys, play Good Vibrations. I was never into vibrations, but it's got a sort of almost negative connotation when you use the word vibration because it's related to the vibrator and all of that, so we won't go there. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, I take it for what I'm having trouble with my computer, and I'd like to break it. Computers destroyed America. Computer has destroyed America. People who are idiots think they're smart because they can text message each other as in hieroglyphics. They may as well be sending smoke signals. Don't send the error report. Internet Explorer has encountered a problem and needs to close. We are sorry for the inconvenience. I can't take it anymore. I was happier without the computer. I was much happier before the computer. I didn't have as many problems as I have in my life now. Computer problems. 1-800-449-8255. Here's what's on michaelsavage.com. You must see this. Gaddafi met the bomber in Libya after a hero's welcome. This is the man, the Lockerbie bomber, who was given a hero's welcome after the idiots in Scotland released him for compassionate reasons. Some people describe this as sickening and stomach-churning. These are the same Brits who have banned me from Britain. Can you believe this? Read the secret emails disclosing how the British government colluded to destroy a man's name and reputation. You think it's a joke? It could happen to you. Read the new legal letter to Britain, the letter of demand by my attorneys. It's on michaelsavage.com. What else is on the website today? Well, let's see. Healthcare, anyone? A British family has been told that Alzheimer's is not a health condition. That's right. Britain's health system ruled that Judith Rose, 74, did not qualify for treatment because her condition, Alzheimer's, was a social rather than a health problem. Kennedy wants to be a law unto himself. That's Mr. Senator Ted Chappaquiddick Kennedy. And by the way, he's not banned from Britain. Isn't that interesting? An illegal alien got just 3.5 years for drunk driving deaths. Huh? Killing 2 women in Queens. What the heck? They all come here to work. Now, this one is the worst. This will break your heart and frighten you. But the illegitimate ACLU, which I've warned you about, as a nest of enemies of the way of life that you've inherited in this country, that means freedom. The ACLU actually showed pictures of undercover CIA operatives to 9/11 terrorists in Guantanamo. Can you believe this? The ACLU and the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, in my opinion, should be rounded up under sedition laws. Will it happen? No. They're running the country. Earlier I talked about an invading snail. Why do you think that an invading snail can be dropped in a bay off the back of a ship? It comes in, let's say, from China on the back of a freighter, and it swims off in a bay in America, and it wipes out all of the local clams. It wipes out the oysters because it's hardier, and the local oysters don't have an immunity to it. It's the same with invading cultures. Put your moronic heads together. The illegal aliens, whether you love them or you don't love them, are an invading organism in a certain strange way. On a biological level, you know I'm right.
Savage.